Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to do is show you how to find the area as well as the circumference of a circle and figures that are encompass circles. So in the first example, we have just a general circle, and what we need to do is find the area. So we need to kind of go back for the formula of area of a circle is area equals pi r squared, where r represents the radius. So in all my problems, I'm going to leave pi in terms of the answer. If you want to approximate, you could just approximate a number for pi and multiply them. But for all of mine, I'm going to leave pi in the answer. So in this case, you can see that my radius here is 3. So the area of 3 inches. So my area is going to equal pi times 3 inches squared. Well, 3 inches squared is going to be 9 inches squared. So my area is going to equal 9 pi inches squared. So I'm just going to put the pi, because that is a number, it's an irrational number. I'm just going to put it right next to the 9, so it'd be 9 pi, and then I'll have my unit at the end, which would be inches squared. As far as finding the circumference is just going to be 2 pi r. So circumference is 2 pi r. So again, all I'm simply going to do is take my radius and then multiply it by 2. And for pi, so my circumference in this case is going to be 2 pi times 3 inches. Well, 3 inches times 2 pi, I can just multiply the 3 times the 2 and then leave my pi in there. So I'll have 6 pi inches. OK. Going into the next one is, now in this case, I have the diameter. So we have to remember, how is the diameter related to the radius? And I'll give you just a quick diameter equals 2r. So it's basically double the radius. OK? So that's going to be kind of helpful, because if the distance for my diameter is 5, that means my radius is going to be 5 divided by 2. Now, you could leave that as 2.5 if you want to, and could calculate it. But let's just leave it as a fraction. That's perfectly fine, especially for me, unless we just need to reduce it at the end. But leaving it as a fraction is preferred over converting it to a decimal. So to go ahead and find the area, all I'm simply going to do is do pi times my radius squared, which is going to be, oops, so that'd be inches. So it'd be 5/2 inches squared. Well, again, if you're squaring a fraction, you're just squaring the numerator and squaring the denominator. So therefore, all I'm getting is 25 over 4 pi inches squared. Okay? All I did was square the numerator and denominator. I didn't have to go crazy. I didn't have to get my calculator and do what's 2.5 times 2.5. 25 over 4, perfectly fine. To go ahead and find the circumference, all I'm simply doing is go ahead and multiplying 2 pi times 5/2 inches. Here you can see the 2's divide out. So therefore, your circumference is just equal to 5 pi inches. Really as simple as that. Not too bad. Over here, you could think of this as maybe like, I don't know, like a record or something. And if we want to go ahead and find the area, I probably shouldn't have shown. We want to find the area of this shaded region here. Okay? So it's kind of like a donut, like a two-dimensional donut. We want to find the area of that figure. So basically what we have is we have this large figure, right, which is like the shaded region, minus the donut hole. That equals my area. So I got to find the area of the large circle, subtract it from the area of the smaller circle to get my area of that ring. So the area of the large circle, you can see this has a radius of 2. So that's going to be pi times 2 feet squared, pi r squared, minus the radius of the smaller one is going to be 1. So that's going to be pi times 1 foot squared equals area. So over here, 2 squared is going to be 4. So that's going to be 4 pi feet squared minus, that's 1 squared is just going to be 1. So it's going to be pi feet squared. So 4 pi feet squared minus pi feet squared is going to be 3 pi feet squared. And that equals my area. As far as finding the circumference, again, the same thing. I'm basically just going to take the circumference of my larger. So I'm going to find the circumference of the larger, and then I'm going to add it to the circumference of my smaller. Because what I'm trying to do is find the circumference of the inner ring and add it to the circumference of the outer ring. Obviously, if you have a problem that's only asking for one or the other, then you just need to find the circumference of one of the circles. In this example, I'm going to find the circumference of both. So the circumference of my top one is going to be, let's see, that's going to be 2 pi r. So that's going to be 2 pi times 2 feet, and then plus 2 pi times 1 foot. So therefore, that's going to be 4 pi feet plus 2 pi feet, and which is equal to 6 pi feet. So there's my circumference is going to be 6 pi feet of that figure. And then moving it to the last example here is we have a semicircle. Now this comes up a bit, and we need to kind of focus. Basically what this is just half a circle. So we're going to do the exact same formulas, except now we're just going to multiply them by 1/2. And that's it, right? Because it's just the same formula for a circle, but just then divided by 2 or multiplied by 1/2. So the area, you can see here is my 4 millimeters here. So area equals 1/2 pi r squared. So that's going to be 1/2 pi times my radius squared is 4 millimeters squared. So 4 millimeters squared is going to be 16 millimeters squared. Divided by 2 is 8 pi millimeters squared. As far as my circumference, I now have basically, if you think about half of my, my diameter. No, yeah, shoot, wrong formula. This one, circumference equals 2 pi times r, right? So if I'm multiplying this by 1/2, 2 pi r, circumference is just going to be pi r, as the 1/2 and the 2 divide out. So my circumference is just going to be pi times r, so that's going to be pi times 4 millimeters. And then I'm going to add it to my diameter, which is double my radius. So that's going to be 8 millimeters. So my circumference equals 8 millimeters plus 4 pi millimeters. Now, obviously, if we needed to approximate, we could plug those into our calculator and approximate. But for right now, since pi is irrational, we're going to leave it in terms of pi. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you find the area and the circumference of circles and their figures. Thanks.